everybody, and welcome back to Finding Passion. Today we're joined by Sharn Rayment, who is a digital producer for Strictly Come Dancing. Thanks so much for joining us, Sharn.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Happy to chat.
It's great to have you on. I really appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a digital producer, which basically means that I create content and manage social media content for channels, for TV channels, TV shows, for all their social media platforms. So I kind of am the part of a team that will create the stuff that you see on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok for a selection of TV shows.
Cool. And you graduated from a degree in fashion marketing and journalism from London Metropolitan, wasn't it, in 2012?
Yeah.
How did that course prepare you for the working world?
Well, that course is actually, anyone who's done journalism or is on that path will know that journalism is like a really practical degree. I found it anyway. So it very much like we would have lessons on spelling and grammar, lessons on how to structure a news story, how to write a sentence properly, like really basic things. So it really kind of helped me like learn really practical skills. Also, you know, how to pitch ideas, how you would approach a magazine or a website or whatever to pitch an idea. So it was very much, it was kind of very founded in the real world, I would say. So it was all very practical stuff that you could learn and take outside of just like the classroom. So I think that really prepared me for the world of work, but also how to really apply my degree into like actual day-to-day life in a job. So super practical one. I really glad that I did it and it had that kind of practical side to it.
But when you finished your degree, you kind of went into more like fashion journalism. How did you then make the jump between like writing about fashion to content creation?
Well, to be honest, it was kind of, and I hate when people say this, like it was just a fluke and I just fell into it, because that's really unhelpful for anyone. But it was just kind of the direction that stuff was going in at the time, basically. So I graduated in 2012. I had like a job at a social media startup for a year, and then I went freelance straight after that. And everything at that point in time, so around 2013, 14, was just the jobs were, even if they were writing jobs, it was all either online. There's like, you know, not many magazine jobs, because that was like when magazines were starting to decline quite a lot, and all the jobs were just like social media copywriter, social media writer, things like that. And you know, when you're a graduate, you just come out, you're like, I'll do anything, whatever. So I kind of ended up just doing a lot of social media work. And then obviously when you start being a social media copywriter, they're like, can you do video, can you edit images? It was never just like a one lane job. It was always like a job that was like required you to do quite a few different things. And then more and more over the past 6 or so years since I've been doing this freelance, it's just become less of like the copywriting side and more of, can you make the content, can you make this video, can you edit this video, can you so it was kind of a very natural progression just of where the industry and the jobs were at the time. It was never like, I never had this like set plan when I came out of uni, just be like, right, I want to be a content producer and that's all I want to do. That was never part of any plan. There wasn't really a plan. It was just start working and see what happens. And here we are.
It is a really valuable thing to be able to be adaptable and change within, you know, your skill set and not just pigeonhole yourself. How did you like boost your skills to be able to adapt to different requirements for different companies?
A lot of it is very much learning on the job, and like, especially, so obviously I'd done journalism degree and paired with marketing. So I knew a lot about how to write and how to sell things and the kind of thought process behind reaching an audience. And then a lot of it was just learning on the job. It was like, you know, do you use Photoshop? No. Okay, sit next to this person and they'll show you the basics of how to use Photoshop. And honestly, it was like invaluable just sitting in offices, sitting with skilled people and just kind of learning skills from them. That's how I learned all my like photo editing stuff. That's how I learned all my video stuff, especially. I've just learned off of really great editors and content producers who are skilled in that area. So a lot of it, is just kind of learning on the job, or if someone asks you to do something, you're like, okay, I'll find out how to do that, and I just go on YouTube and just hope for the best. So a lot of just kind of winging it But learning from great people. Like you meet amazing people in the kind of work I do who have got so many skills, and so you just kind of have to like take them on.
Soak up their knowledge all the time.
Exactly, all the time.
So this world of social media has totally blown up over like the last decade, and I suppose it's a relatively young industry.
Yeah.
How have you kept up? Because you said there that you're always like learning new skills all the time, but how do you keep up with all of the new, initiatives within social media?
Yeah, again, it's just one of those things. Like if you're in that world and something happens, like I remember when I first started my first job, I worked for an agency, and I worked for the Channel E Entertainment. So I did shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and stuff back then, like way back in 2013, 14. And I remember you couldn't even post videos on Instagram back then. And then that was like a big launch. It was like, oh, excited, we can now post videos. And obviously you've had stories, you have everything since then. So it's just very much of like really immersing yourself in the platform day to day, which I do as a social media content producer. And then just having a play, really learning the functionality, make sure you get the hang of it. Also just like a lot of looking what other people are doing and kind of being inspired by the possibilities of what you can do on that platform or that new kind of initiative, as you say. And then just kind of coming up with creative ideas that you think could work. A lot of it is just learning on the job, because as you say, new functionality is released all the time, and you just kind of have to pick it up like that. So just a lot of like playing and a lot of reading online and YouTubing and all that kind of stuff. And
you mentioned there about Keeping Up with the Kardashians, but you've also worked on like Geordie Shore, X on the Beach, like Just the Two of Us, and Celebrity Big Brother, basically all of the shows that everybody wants to watch.
All the greats.
How do you use social media to bring people on that journey alongside the TV show?
I think, I've always seen like the social media channels of a show as like an extension of the show. So if there's like, if you put yourselves in the shoes of the viewer, like if I pre-watch an episode, for example, say of Geordie Shore, I watch it, and any moment that like jumps out as me as like an amazing moment or a sad moment or a really shocking moment, they're the same things the same kind of cues that the audience are going to like pick up. So I just kind of think of myself as one of the audience, put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, well, that's the moment everyone's going to watch again. That's the moment everyone's going to be talking about. That's the moment that So it's very much kind of just identifying those key moments and turning them into content that people can take away straight away, so they can see it on their TV screen, and then the moment they've seen that shocking moment on TV, they can then look at their phone, open Instagram, and there's the 30-second clip of that moment that they want to share with their friends or put on their story or retweet because it's like so out there. So a lot of it is just like just trusting your instincts of what you personally think is like a strong moment or a strong part of that show, and then how you can best package that up to make it shareable and a little snackable bit of content for the audience.
And ultimately, it really is about making shareable content, as you say, because you want to build that buzz and boost the reach of the show. But how do you come up with concepts for social media content that is going to make somebody want to share it?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of you know what? It's just a lot of like knowing those moments that you're like, that is going to be the one that people are going to watch over and over again, and then the best way to package it. So it might be like, okay, this would work really well as a meme because it was just a fun, like someone falls over down some steps and it's funnier as a meme with some text around it rather than just a clip of someone falling over. Or it might be a really emotional, sad video. So you're like, okay, we're not going to do any funny business with this. It just needs to be a really nice clip that people can like really immerse themselves in. So in terms of like creative ideas, it's very much like just playing it by ear, just really trusting your instincts. And also I like to look at like trends as well quite a lot. So obviously on Twitter there'll be like funny kind of text memes, like what's the most recent one that's like how it started, how it's going, those kind of memes. And like, right, how can we tie into that? And then I might be working on an episode of Love Island, for example, and there'll be some two really strong images of someone looking really happy and someone looking really sad or something like that. And I'm like, that would work perfect for a meme. So a lot of it is inspired by trends as well as like just personal feeling.
And when you come up with those ideas, that there must be a process that you go through to like pitch ideas. what is the process like when you are, you know, working with your team to create those kind of ideas and pitch content themes?
I think it totally depends on the team you're in. You know, some teams are so much more casual and it's just kind of like, hey, should we do this? Sure, why not? You know, it's not so much of a pitch process, whereas some kind of teams are more like, you know, for example, like Love Island, or we know that people love this person and we know that this kind of format works well and here's the analytics to back it up, and then you can use that as kind of the basis for like pitching a new idea, like we should definitely do a clip of this because XYZ. So yeah, analytics is always like a good one to go to if you're like, I believe this is a good idea and here's the proof. Or sometimes it is just a case of like, I've got this weird idea, just taking it to your senior or whoever's head of your team and just being like, should we try this? I think it'll be really funny. I think it will fly. And a lot of it, so much of it is trial and error. You know, a lot of it is just like, we'll try that once because we think it'll be funny, and it could do really well until you keep using that format over and over again. Or it might totally flop and you're like, oh, well, you know, nothing lost, let's move on. So it's definitely, it's as a freelancer, I work in a lot of different types of teams on a lot of shows, lots of brands and channels. So it definitely is like the pitch process and the ideas process is different depending on what show and what team I'm working within.
Do you think it's that you learn a lot from being freelance about how to adapt to different teams?
So much. Like I absolutely love freelancing because it's just enabled me to work in so many different jobs with different channels, different brands. Like if I'd been in a full-time job and worked for one channel for 6 years, I don't think I'd have like the breadth and the wealth of experience and knowledge that I do now, just from learning how different places do things differently and things like that. So freelancing has definitely been so valuable for like widening my skill set and my kind of, yeah, how I can adapt to different teams.
You must see things so many times on like different shows that you can kind of transfer, like use transferable skills the whole time to use like throughout your career.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, when, you know, back when I first started working on TV, as I said, I didn't do any video stuff. And then when I worked on one show, I learned when I worked with MTV actually on some of their stuff, they were like, can you do some bits of video editing? So I started doing that then. And then as soon as I had that kind of skill in my bag, I started going to other shows like, actually, I can do this now. So that skill that I learned one place, I could take to other places, and it really helped me kind of get some more opportunities with different channels. So definitely gives you a good basis of learning all different skills and taking them around.
Makes you so powerful to be
able. Exactly. It's nice. I'm kind of in control, but not, because you kind of are, because you kind of work for yourself, but also you work for people. It's kind of a weird state of being, but it's just the best. And you get to work with different teams, and quite a lot of the time I end up working with the same people on the same kind of freelancers across different teams and stuff. So you kind of become like this weird, like little family that's just in different places, different times. So it's really cool.
And a lot of the shows that you work on, they do have such a fast turnaround. So, for example, you've got the Strictly final coming up this weekend, which is obviously going to be totally bonkers.
Yeah.
How do you? There's obviously, you can't plan everything, like with it being a live show.
Yeah.
But how do you work to think about like a content calendar, and obviously you can pre-schedule, like pre-plan some content. But also, how do you manage being reactive when it is a live show?
So, yeah, we kind of pre-plan as much as we can. You know, for example, like you said, with the Strictly final this weekend, it's a live show. We don't know what's going to happen, who's going to win. So we just kind of we really prepare for any eventuality. So we've got a bit of copy and we've got an asset made for whoever wins or whatever happens. And so we've basically got every single possibility ready and lined up. For when we go. But yeah, reactive, we kind of have to just be really on it and really focused in that time. And you know, if something happens that we just totally unexpected, and we just have to kind of decide what we're going to do with that, if we're going to do a clip of it and put it straight out, or if we're just going to leave it and pretend it didn't happen. Like, you know, it's one of those things you just kind of have to fly by the seat of your pants while you're doing it, and be best for the kind of things that aren't going to change. You best prepare as much as you can for those, and the things that are just going to happen and you can't predict, you just have to let them happen and deal with them as they come. That's just kind of a universal across every live show that I've worked on. You know, things happen. I work on Dancing on Ice, and someone's ice skate will go amazing in rehearsal, and then suddenly they'll fall over on the live show. How do you deal with that? You know, So we just kind of have to adapt to those kind of reactive things.
And do you find, like, how does it work? Like when you are being reactive to the show, is it literally, I'm so intrigued, but like the like inside track, but is it that you're sitting at home on your sofa and you're being reactive to the show, or do you have to go, do you get like access to backstage, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so tends to be sort of when I work on different live shows, you're like in an office in the studio, so you're there so you can communicate with other people in the show, you can communicate with the people at the top of the show and communicate immediately with your team, rather than, as you say, being at home on the sofa and just kind of being like, oh, I'll try this. It's very much a very serious kind of like, not war room environment, that's probably a bit dramatic, but it's very much hunker down and really focus on the show together. So you've kind of got, if you've got questions and you're not sure, so say for example if someone does fall over on the ice and you're like, is it mean if we clip that, what do we do? And you can kind of chat to 3 or 4 different people and make sure you've all come to the right decision together, and check, for example, if you're writing copy really quickly and you can quickly get someone to get an eye on it, so there's no errors and things like that. So it's very much people in the room, just so everyone's got a view on it and we can all be reactive and kind of hopefully do the right thing together.
What's the buzz like when you're working backstage on a show like that?
It's so fun. Like I do feel like so lucky just to be like in that environment and watch a TV show be made and to happen before your eyes, and you're like, I'm at work. Like it's so exciting, and it's just like if you're a person who kind of works well, not necessarily like under pressure in a stressful way, but if you like someone who can really focus in when you need to, then it's like the best kind of job and environment to be in, because it's just like the whole buzz of the show gets everyone's in a good mood, everyone's excited, everyone's happy to be there. So yeah, it's such a great like environment to be in, and it's amazing that that's like a workplace that I can go to every week.
Have you always had a love for reality TV?
Yeah, when I was younger, I always wanted to. My dream was to write for like Smash Hits magazine, because I love like,
everybody's dream. Like
actually, I just wanted to be like a pop star. I wanted to know all the gossip. I wanted to meet TV stars and stuff. And then obviously, I don't do that, but I kind of feel like I do a weird kind of modern day version of that, wherein I get to just walk down the corridor and you've got a celebrity walking the other way. I get to film with celebs all the time, film with talent. And work in entertainment has always just been in my blood and something that I've been really passionate about growing up. And little did I know that I would end up working in TV shows. I never thought that would happen, but here we are.
It's all worked out.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier a little bit about how you get to know like new software platforms, and you're always learning to do new skills. What do you think are the most important software platforms to be able to be confident in doing your job?
Yeah, so as a content producer, it's definitely like the actual physical things that you can create content from. So always across the board, every show I've ever worked on, it's been Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro. They're the key ones that I've used for years. I know a lot of people also use Final Cut, which is fine, but in my experience, Premiere Pro is kind of the more universal one people use. So that in terms of actually like creating the content, Photoshop and Premiere Pro. And then I'm actually maybe not controversially, but like in terms of like social media scheduling tools and things like that, I don't tend to use a lot of those. I prefer just to like really know the platform itself and not use too many like extensions and tools and blah, blah, blah. Obviously those are great for like different kind of analytics. I know there are a lot of analytics tools out there that are professional and cost a lot of money to use, and a lot of brands and channels will use those. But in terms of day to day, I like to just use the platforms themselves to schedule. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, things like that. So I don't tend to use any other software in that regard. So my advice would just be, get up on your Photoshop and your Premiere Pro if you're kind of looking at that kind of content creator side of things. And then if you want to work in social media as a whole, just really get to know the platforms inside and out really well. That would be my advice.
And you've also worked on Love Island, as you spoke about earlier. And in the time that you've worked from there, the social channels of the show have grown to be some of the most engaged social channels of a reality TV show ever. In entertainment history. Why do you think that is? Like, was it the being able to turn those key moments into engaging content? What was it that that boosted the channel so much?
Well, I think at one point, I don't know if it still is, I think it's like the second most, the Instagram, Love Island Instagram, Love Island UK Instagram was the second most followed TV account in the whole world.
Wow.
Behind the Kardashians. So it's like humongous in terms of reality TV, sorry. So it's like this, one of the biggest reality TV Instagram accounts in the world, which is like quite a pressure when you're just walking around and logged in on your phone to like 3 point whatever million followers. You're like, oh, I could just accidentally post something now. I don't do that, obviously. I think one, because obviously it's such a youth show, the talent in it are young, the people who watch it are young, the people who talk about it are quite young. So obviously it's kind of that audience and that generation that are on social media anyway, and that's where they consume most of their content rather than television a lot of the time. They'll see it there. I think the accounts just kind of blew up because obviously the show blew up, number one, so people were intrigued to see what was going on the socials. But also I think with shows like Love Island that are on every night, and if you miss an episode, you can go to the social channels and watch several clips and watch the highlights kind of in a way, so you don't necessarily have to go and watch the whole show to feel like you're up on the storylines, you're up on who's with who, what's happening, or what the funny thing that happened last night, or what the shocking dumping was last night. That will all be on our social channels. So we kind of feed like that kind of catch up, I suppose, service in a way, but also a few like memes and things that are really shareable. Like we like to do a lot of memes and like just stand out quotes. Even sometimes we'll just pull a quote and not make it a video, we'll just make it a static image with the quote over the top because the words that someone said were so strong or so stupid or ridiculous that they're just like will stand strong enough by themselves. So I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about those moments that you watch and you're like, I know that people are going to want to see this again and again, and they want to put it in the group chat and share with their friends so they can watch it again and have a laugh. So it's very much, about just identifying those moments and finding the best way to package them up and feed them to the audience. And I think we've, over the years, done that really well.
Did you get to go to the villa?
Yeah, so I worked on the series in South Africa, just gone, which was earlier this year, January, Feb. Yeah, we had a little wander around the villa, got my obligatory pictures in,
Obviously.
Exactly. So in the beach hut and all that. So yeah, it's a wild world.
I bet.
Yeah.
Feels very surreal, I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah. It's just like I'm in the TV show. It's really weird. It's just weird, like how everything looks on TV versus real life. And you're like, I did not expect this room to be here. Why is the bedroom here? You have like a different map of the villa in your mind. And when you go in, you're like, this is not how I thought it would be. Yeah, it's quite exciting.
So all of the shows that you've worked on, so we talked about, there's Love Island, there's Strictly, Geordie Shore, and they've all got quite, they've got different following and they've got a different audience.
Yeah.
So you must have to tailor your tone of voice to suit different audiences.
Yeah.
How do you go about creating that and creating, a tone of voice that people would really relate to?
Well, so that's exactly it. It's like, one of my first experiences of this was when I worked on Geordie Shore, and they were like, we talk to the audience like the show talks, so we talk in a Geordie accent on socials. Now I'm an Essex girl and I'm not a Geordie, so I just had to learn all my Geordie slang, watch loads of episodes and just really get into how they talk. So it's all about talking as the show talks, because obviously people watch the show and they enjoy the show and they enjoy the way that the talent or the people on the show talk. So we kind of talk to them in the same way, like we would on Strictly, like we would on Love Island, so the tone of voice is very much, I always say, like, you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for your audience, and they want to hear from the show in the show that they know and love in the same way. So we just always kind of make sure we're using the same language, the same kind of in jokes, the same kind of slang or not slang that they use in the show, and turn that into kind of incorporate that into the tone of voice. So yes, sometimes I'm quite often like switching between being like a Geordie to Love Island, which is more online kind of slang and abbreviations and things like that. So you have to adapt quite quickly. But I think if you're someone like me, who the shows I work on I really get into and I love them and I kind of live and breathe them when I'm working on them, so you just kind of gets in your head. It's just kind of something that embeds itself in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. And part of your job is really creating 360 content for, you know, as you mentioned earlier, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. How do you tweak that content so that it's engaging for all of those different platforms?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it really. It's a lot of tweaking. It's a lot of just kind of reversioning. So we might have an amazing clip or an amazing dance, for example, from Strictly, and then we're like, right, we're going to just put out a certain snippet of the dance on this platform, but actually this funny bit happened, so we'll clip that up and use it as like a funny little throwaway clip for TikTok, because that kind of shorter stuff kind of works on there. On Facebook we might put out the full dance of 2 minutes and things like that. So it's a lot of it, I suppose, is dictated in a way by the platform, what it can take and what the functionality is. So, you know, on Instagram you can do video up to a minute, or IGTV longer. So we might go, right, we'll just, for you know, things with more detail, we might do an IGTV. But if it's just something that's a kind of little nugget of content, we'll just keep that short. Whereas Facebook can take a bit longer in terms of duration. So a lot of it is, just tweaking, reversioning, and also resizing. So making sure that we're optimizing for the platform and not just sticking a widescreen video on every channel, because that won't view properly and that won't display properly on people's phones or the way in which they use the platform. So a lot of it is, just kind of taking a bigger piece and then taking slices out of that piece and twisting and turning it and going, right, this is right for that platform. So that's quite a lot of the job. And I think that's why a lot of like Photoshop and Premiere Pro are really useful, because they make that kind of stuff quite quick and easy.
Mm-hmm. So with Superdrug, who you've worked on recently and launched their TikTok, which TikTok to me is a bit of a mind blow, because I don't fully understand it. I need to catch up.
Yeah.
You worked with Superdrug to really build their TikTok offering.
Yeah.
How did you identify successful content ideas that, you know, that would work for the brand on that platform?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to a bit of trial and error, but also as well, like TikTok is obviously, Superdrug is a brand that is, you know, healthcare, beauty, skincare, lots of different kind of covers a few different areas. But TikTok itself is such a hub of like beauty and skincare content. There's so many like amazing makeup artists, beauty creators on there. And so it kind of totally made sense for them to be on that platform and be in that conversation and part of that community on there. You know, I think people often think of like beauty vloggers as just on YouTube, and that's like a whole different world, but they're not. They're everywhere, but on TikTok they're like huge. It's such a huge part of the platform now. So I think I'm very, when it comes to like kind of coming up with creative ideas for them, I look a lot at like trends, what products people are talking about is really strong, because there might be new innovation in makeup. And it's like, right, we need to be part of this conversation because we actually sell that product, but no one knows about it. So it's a lot of looking at trends and looking at what people are talking about. So I just spend a lot of time looking at kind of deep diving into beauty TikTok and seeing what like the creators are doing. And some of them like are absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. So if, you know, can we work with them? Can we get them on board to do something using Superdrug products and show what amazingness you can do with what the brand offers? So yeah, a lot of it is very much trend led, and TikTok is a platform that kind of thrives on trends. So trending music and trending hashtags are kind of the things that push you up. If you engage with them and get involved with them, they push you up the algorithm a bit actually. So it's not always necessarily about amazing brand new original ideas. It's actually about putting your like 10 pence in on that trend, and that will help you grow. So
with those trends, you have use trends and insights to inform, you know, the content that you create going forward. Are there any particular places that you look to kind of help shape your work?
In terms of insights, you mean like things we look at? Yeah, I think always video views for me is a big one. It's kind of like, I know a lot of people look at likes and see how many likes a post has got, which is obviously great and a great indicator. But I always feel like I do, I sometimes mindlessly just scroll and double tap, and I haven't looked that deep at the content.
Yeah, that's so true. I do that all the
time. Just like anything. So a lot, obviously likes is great, and you can absolutely get a gauge from that of how popular what you've done is. But video views for me is a massive one. I just think you can really measure if someone's sat there and taken the time to watch and look at something and that counts as a view. And I know that what counts as a view is different on different platforms, but just in general, I think video views is like a good indicator to me, because you might spend hours and hours or days on something and the video views might be quite low for your average, and you're like, well, that wasn't worth anyone's time. So views for me is something I really like to look at, or on other platforms that might be labeled as like impressions, so how many people have seen that bit of content. So yeah, I always tend to go on views rather than like likes or follows. That's kind of more important to me, what people have actually taken the time to sit there and take in what you've done. So I always think that's a better indicator for me personally. I know people will say different things and there's no hard and fast rule. I think that's the thing. There's no like, you must look at this because this is the only indicator that something's good. But personally, I think views is a good one, a good indicator.
And the shows that you work for, do they look for those similar metrics, more of like the views rather than the likes? And
yeah, a total mix. Again, like different teams prefer different things. Different teams want to see good reach. Different teams want to see likes or shares is a big one as well. How many times someone shared a piece of content, which means that it's got legs and people really want to see it. So it totally depends what show I'm working on, what kind of team I'm working on, what they're looking for. You know, the one outside of TV and like just other clients I've worked on, my like pet hate thing is when you post something and they're like, has it done well? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? What yeah, has it done well? That's like over the years I've had that said to me so many times, and I'm like, well, by what standard? Like, you know, has it done well for you, or has it done well, like, you know, because if you're a small account with say 2,000 followers, then something that's got like 1,000 views is amazing for you. If you're on an account that's got like 500,000 followers, and then that's not great. So, you know, I'm that's like my pet hate of just like, it's too generic and too fluffy for me. It's like it definitely needs like quantifying. I think we use on different shows, we do that in different ways.
And working with influencers as well is a big part of your job, to be able to create social content. How do you identify relevant people to work with?
Well, for example, with like Superdrug, I work with influencers a lot beauty influencers, and you know, there's no kind of magic button or that just finds you the right influencers. A lot of it is just sitting through and trawling through accounts and making sure they're suitable, kind of making sure they've got a kind of decent number of followers. And again, decent means a different thing depending on what brand you're working for, what they're looking for. Some accounts I've worked on only, you know, actually want smaller influencers. Some of them want the biggest ones. So it totally depends on what the brand wants. But a lot of the time I just spend scrolling through, seeing if the kind of stuff they're creating. So, you know, for example, if it's a beauty influencer, is there, you know, are their makeup skills really amazing, or have they posted really fun, engaging content that I think is like aligned with the brand I'm working with? There's no kind of magic wand. It's just a lot of physical, manual looking through. Right, this person, I'll save their profile. This person, I'll save their profile. This person, not for me, but then their profile might lead you to someone else's profile and they'll be suitable. So it's a lot of hours of just sitting and looking, in terms of the actual finding them part. And then just checking and then just looking through their content to get a gauge of like what their vibe is, what kind of stuff they do, and if they're a good fit for like you might have an idea in mind. You're like, okay, we need an amazing makeup artist, but it might be, I don't know, say a Halloween-y idea, and then the kind of makeup artist you found doesn't really do kind of scary special effects stuff, but actually that's what you need. So it always depends on the brief and the brand that you're working with, what their kind of requirements are, what they kind of determine an influencer is, I suppose.
What about when you're actually working with talent and influencers? Because behind the scenes content does perform so well on social media, but it must be so important to build up a rapport with people. How do you go about building up those relationships?
It's like, it's so, people can like, especially like talent can respond so differently, just depending on like the vibe in the room and the person they're dealing with. So if they're dealing with someone who's quite serious, it is not like, you know, it's just like, right, sit down, we've got some questions to ask you to camera, this. It's very different to like if you're being friendly with them and just get them in the room, ask how their day was, what they've been up to, you know, just like, I think it's just basically being a nice human being and being friendly like you would to anyone, making it feel all very normal. And you know, a lot of the time if we're filming with, you know, dancers on Strictly, for example, we might put a bit of music on in the room before they come in, just to get the energy up in the room. Just anything about making them feel the most comfortable and the most at ease they can. That's where they tend to give you, you know, the better stuff, when you're like, okay, you're going to dance around for 5 minutes and just be silly. You know, it's very easy to say that, but if you're not like encouraging them in the right way, if they don't trust you, if you're not like being friendly with them, then, you know, you might not get the best stuff out of them. I think that's a good thing about I go back to shows, for example, like Strictly, year after year, and they kind of recognize you and they know you and they know your face, and then they start to trust you because they like what you've been doing for the past 4 years. So yeah, that kind of relationship, I mean, you don't have to be everyone's best mate, but for the 20 minutes you're filming with them, you have to be like, you know, pretend you're their best mate for that time. Yeah.
It is a really good skill to be able to have, because whether you're kind of interviewing people or you're shooting people or you're you know, you're talking to them behind the scenes, you know, it's so important to be able to, you know, create that atmosphere where you feel comfortable with them, because you know, you're going to get the best content out of them, aren't you, if you know, are making them feel comfortable and at ease.
Exactly. You just kind of got to, like, it's not, I suppose, butter them up sounds a bit like, you know, you're being fake, but you're not. Just, you know, be yourself, but be friendly, and make sure like they walk into that room and they feel like there's a positive energy and it's a nice moment, and they're not walking into like me in a mood because I sat in traffic this morning and so I'm not in the mood for this, so just sit down and answer these questions. They're not going to feel comfortable or like they're having a good time with that. And like, you know, we, especially, you know, in digital teams, you often only get a very short filming slot and they turn up late because their rehearsal ran over or whatever. You know, you've got 20 minutes to get the best you can out of them. You haven't got 3 hours for them to warm up and start to feel, you know, and bare their soul. So it's kind of, from the get-go, you've got to get them in and be like, you know, be happy, put them in a good mood, make a nice energy in the room, and just try and get the best content you can out of them in that 20 minutes. So it's very important that you can really like switch into that mode and be ready to go with them straight away.
And remember, they're human as well.
Exactly, they're just people. Like, we've had like over the years of working on all these shows, so many different celebrities of all levels through the door, and you know, at the end of the day, just human beings, and you're just asking them a question or ask them to do something, and most of the time, if you're nice enough about it, it's not a problem, you know.
There you go. You've got your own TikTok account as well, which has boomed over the last couple of years, and you've got now over 54,000 followers.
Yeah, how did that happen? I'm just
how did that happen? Like, what do you think is like the key formula to, you know, getting such like a boosted following?
Well, I mean, everyone says this, it was my lockdown thing, but yeah, it was basically, I started it in March because so home decor, interior design is something I love, and I've like done loads of just kind of DIY'd my way through it. And I've been on Instagram for a while, not really paid much attention to it. And then back in March, when like lockdown hit and no one had anything to do, I just thought, oh, I'll just join TikTok and I'll just post a few videos on there. And it just went poof, blew up straight away. And I think, and I was like, oh, I just wasn't expecting it at all. But now I've got really into it. It's actually really helped me learn how to use TikTok for like my actual day job as well. So it's kind of been, you know, a blessing in that way. In terms of, I think, especially with like the kind of content I do, DIY content, people just kind of shamelessly want to see that before and after. You know, they want to see a whole journey in 30 seconds, even though it might have taken you 3 weeks to do something. It's just that like really short, snackable bit of content where they can see it before and an after, and it's a wow process with some nice music to it in 30 seconds. So yeah, I always try to just, in terms of like the stuff I do, obviously which is very different to the TV stuff, very different genre and world, but just kind of give them a bit of that, like a bit of that process, show them the process, but very quickly and in a nice kind of packaged way. It's all about packaging up things in little kind of watchable moments. Yeah, and it's just kind of in terms of creative ideas, it's just because it's a personal passion project, there's no pressure from, you know, a client or time restraints on it. I can kind of take my time to do as much as I want, film it once, film it twice, film it 5 times to get it right. And yeah, just kind of see what happens. Again, it's all trial and error. Like, I've posted TikToks that I've spent hours on and they've done nothing, and then you post one that takes 5 minutes and it blows up. So it's kind of, I don't know, I'm still like a bit confused to why it's done so well, but it just has. But also I think not so much now, but at the time there wasn't a lot of, like, especially in the UK base, there wasn't a lot of people on TikTok doing DIY or home decor content. So I was kind of along with a few others, one of the first people to do it. So I think that just worked in my favor as well, because it was like a new kind of genre and a new kind of area for TikTokers. So it was feeding that need. Whereas, you know, there's so many, loads and loads and loads of beauty and makeup influencers on there. So it's probably harder to be found in the noise of that. Whereas I think I was just lucky that I was early.
Do you ever feel that between your day job and your TikTok side hustle, you feel that you need to take time off from social media?
Yes. Not necessarily take time off social media, just like take time off from life, I think, sometimes. Definitely always busy, but I just, yeah, I'm not someone who's ever felt the need for like a digital break or digital detox. I love social media, I love being on it, and I think, I know for different people it has different implications, and some people really struggle with like constantly looking at social media and stuff, but I actually see it in quite a positive light, and I only follow who I want to follow and things that really enrich my life and enrich me. So I don't follow anything that makes me feel bad or down or makes me compare myself or anything like that. So I don't necessarily feel a need to switch off from social media. But, you know, like, for example, I'm full-time on Strictly at the moment, so I haven't been doing much on TikTok, and I've actually just taken that pressure off on going, Sharn, you don't need to post a new TikTok every day. It's okay to just like actually focus and do your full-time job and come back to that when you've got the time for it. No one's gonna, you know, be crying about it or sitting at home waiting for your next post, so don't worry. So I think it's just like allowing yourself to like not feel like you have to be doing something all the time is sometimes a bit of a pressure. And I'm definitely guilty of like being like, oh, I haven't posted in a while, I should post, and then I just like calm myself down, like it's okay. So yeah, more kind of that side, the workload side, rather than the actual looking at my phone side.
Yeah. It's so lovely that you talk about your job in a way that you sound so passionate about it, and you clearly really enjoy it. What do you think is the best thing about working in content production?
Well, you're definitely right. I love my job. I just think it's amazing that like I quite often like just turn around to people I work with and I'm like, this is our job. Like we're getting paid to do this. It's amazing. I think a lot of people don't realize that this is a job, and that social media isn't just like run by robots. Like actual human beings run this and have to do it. And they're the ones that put the time into making those videos that you watch on YouTube or on Instagram. Like they don't just magically appear. I remember someone said to me once, they were like, oh, I didn't realize that people like, you know, actually, you know, as a job, you know, made these things for social media. I was like, how do you think them, like, where do they come from? It's like, it's not just like a robot sitting somewhere making things. So first of all, I think it's amazing that I get to do a job that like is creative and quite new. I think the best bit about it is the creative freedom in a way. So, you know, if you work in big TV and you've got to get a shot signed off and an idea signed off by so many people before it can actually happen. Working for like in a digital team, you can come up with an idea on the Monday, film it on the Tuesday and have it out there with the audience by the Wednesday without it necessarily having to go through 10 lines of command, and the script doesn't have to be checked over 20 times. Do you know what I mean? It's like a very much such a faster creative process, which I really like, because you can try new things out all the time. So I think that's the best thing about my job. Also, quite often on TV shows, you get free catering. So that's also a massive bonus, which I love. I will take a free meal any day. And also, like, you know, when I work on live shows like Strictly or any live show, and you get to sit and watch a rehearsal, and it's like so many people would pay good money or kill to be here just watching it. I'm just watching it as part of my day job. It's amazing. It's like going on Strictly, it's like going to the theatre every Saturday. I get to sit there and watch a rehearsal happen, live music, dance, performances. Like, it is incredible to like actually be able to see it in real life. So very lucky in that respect as well.
I want your job. I just need to learn how to use TikTok.
Get on TikTok and it all happen for you, I'm sure. But no, I think that's the main takeaway I think I'd like from this, is that for people to know that this is a job, but it's not like an abstract thing that you know, happens automatically by robots or anything. It's all, there are so many jobs nowadays in social media and content production. So if you have got those skills, or if you're passionate about, it could be entertainment, it could be sport, it could be politics, whatever, there are social media jobs in every kind of area, in every industry. There are jobs in social media regardless of what it is. If you love animals, if you love space, if you love home decor, you know, you might not associate, you might just think social media is like just memes or whatever, I don't know, but anything you can think of, there are social media accounts, there are brands that have social channels. So there are these job opportunities in whatever your passion is when it comes to social media and being a content producer. So if that's something that if you find something you love and you also enjoy social media, there is a way to pair them together and do it professionally and get paid for it, which is amazing. And a lot of people don't realize that, because it's such a new kind of industry and a new space. So I definitely encourage people to look at social media jobs. And also I just feel like, as well, young people, I'm not so young anymore, but as young people, we kind of have a one up on the boomers when it comes to social media. So like, go out there and do it, because you know that 60-year-old John can't do it, but if you're 21, you probably know what you're doing in that regard. So, you know, go out there and get those jobs and opportunities.
I think it's really inspiring, because so many times, like, it's obviously really difficult for now for, you know, students to get those breaks because of the pandemic and so much, you know, competition. But traditionally you would think, well, actually, you know, you've got to work your way through your career and you've got to work your way up. But it feels like now that we're at a time when there's people coming out of uni who are the most qualified instantly.
Oh, like, absolutely. Like the younger generation have just absolutely got, they do this in their spare time, sit on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, and make amazing content off their own backs. And it's like, you can actually, if you want to, obviously you can turn that's a valuable skill that you can actually use and get a job with. Like a few chats I've done with people before are kind of like, oh, do I have to work in industry for 10 years before I go freelance? I went freelance after 1 year. I know people who work in TV who started their first job out of uni was a freelance job, and they still are, because and they hop from show to show to show. Because it's not necessarily about like that kind of old-fashioned mindset of like, go and get a job and get some experience under your belt and a job for life. If you've got creative skills, if you could use Photoshop or do a bit of graphic design or a bit of video editing or make fun TikToks, if you can do that already, then that's your skill is ready to go there. You don't necessarily need to kind of sit in a job you hate for 10 years to build it up. I think that's like a really old-fashioned mindset.
It is.
All the time, people, brands and I all the time get asked, oh, do you know someone who can do this? Do you know someone who can do this? And I have a pool of people that I've worked with before, and I'll like always recommend them and stuff. But you know, there's always people up top looking for people who are a bit lower, who can do the skills, have the skill set that they don't have, because 30 years ago they weren't making TikToks, but now we are. So, you know, like, I think there are more opportunity. I know obviously at the moment it's really hard and there's loads of competition, and obviously that's a separate discussion, but there are opportunities out there now that weren't there before for, like, you know, first jobbers or people just starting, who have definitely got the experience and what it takes.
Definitely. So what do you think the future for content creation is?
Oh, that's a very vast question. I don't know. It's really hard to predict, isn't it? I think no one ever really saw TikTok becoming such a big thing. I think TikTok, in terms of like brands and stuff, still is quite young. Like, there aren't, like, when you go on Instagram and you can basically find any brand on Instagram. And like what you said earlier about TikTok, you know, oh, you need to get to grips with it. I'm not quite there yet. I think a lot of brands and a lot of brand teams and a lot of TV shows, a lot of channels are kind of that mindset at the moment. And I think give it a year and they'll all realise, oh, damn, we should have been on there age ago, and it will just be saturated with every brand will just have an account just because they feel they need to. So I think even though obviously TikTok is a massive platform, there's still such a knowledge gap. And I think that will catch up over the next year, and that a lot of brands will suddenly appear and start doing amazing things and start doing really fun things and learning how to use the platform. So I honestly think that we're only just like the start of like TikTok being a huge platform. You know, I really do think it will be as big as Instagram in years to come, but I think we're kind of still in the kind of young stages of it at the moment. I think it's the catch up with TikTok that the brands need to do. because you've got 14-year-olds or 31-year-olds on there who are making stuff in their own bedrooms and doing a really good job of it, but then you've got massive brands who aren't even touching it. And it's like, well, why not? Why people are on there and seeing stuff and spending hours on there looking at content. So I think there's a lot of playing catch up that's going to happen there. I think that's probably the next big development in my mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so lovely to talk to you, and I feel like I've learnt loads from you myself. So,
oh, good.
So it's been brilliant to have you on.
Oh, thank you. It's been great to chat. I hope this is useful for your students and whoever are watching this.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. Well, good luck with Strictly this weekend.
Thank you.
I hope it all goes well. And again, thanks so much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.